morning, TCTC. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm thrilled to participate in your Just Drive Week. I'm Heidi Dean. I'm with Impact Teen Drivers, and I guess you just want to take a minute to say how glad we are that your school has chosen to participate in our contest and make safe driving a priority for you guys. I hope by this point in the week that most of you are starting to get the idea that reckless and distracted driving, not a great idea. And maybe even some of you have come to understand that it's actually the #1 cause of death in the teen population. So you're lucky that you have people in your school that care about you the way that your teachers do and the way that some of the students do that participated in our Just Drive contest. Some of you may know, some of you may not know, but your school won 3rd place when they entered the Just Drive contest last fall. And we're so excited to see you back again. You set the bar pretty high. And the reason that the bar was so high is that you all did such a great job of sharing strategies and solutions for young drivers and passengers. And you did a great job of showing simple solutions and choices that you can make to keep yourselves and your friends safer, not just now, but also during this summer, which is known as the most deadliest days of summer for teen drivers, and hopefully for the rest of your driving careers. So now I'd like to share a video with you. A couple of things I'd like you to keep in mind. Everyone in the video is a real person. Their stories are real, and I'm not going to show you anything bloody or gory. And I'll be back after, and we can talk through what we watch and send you guys on your way. Thanks.
What kind of dream world are we living in? It's a fact that reckless and distracted driving is the #1 killer of teens in America. And it's fiction to think that it can't happen to you. It can, and it does happen to people just like us every day. In the state of California alone, almost 400 teens die annually from reckless and distracted driving, which is equivalent to 8 full school buses. Look, driving is an incredible opportunity, but the privilege of driving comes with serious responsibility. So it's worth looking at what kinds of things we can do to make sure that when we're driving, we're living in a real world, which means being present and avoiding those potentially lethal decisions. So let's talk about what reckless and distracted driving is. This may seem like an innocent thing, but it's not. Many crashes happen when a person takes just one of their hands off the wheel to simply reach for an object in their car. Don't do it. This is not the time to be a supermodel. And if you're a passenger, remember, you're part of this equation too. The photo shoot can wait. What are you thinking? This is not the time to let your imagination run wild. Keep your eyes on the road, hands on the wheel, and most importantly, your head in the game, not in the morgue. Learning new driver safety habits and ditching old ones takes a minute to sink in. But it also only takes a second to make one lethally wrong move that could wreck your life or someone else's. It just isn't worth it. So, why do we risk it?
I drive distracted because G-Eazy right here always raps next to me. That's about it.
I got a beautiful voice, so.
When I'm running late for class, sometimes I'm eating and driving at the same time.
I play like game apps on my phone.
I forget I'm driving sometimes and I'm like, oh, they're so pretty. Oh wait, I'm driving.
My mom, she texts all the time while she's driving.
I fix my beard up.
I do my makeup on my way to work.
I take a lot of selfies for the girls.
Dance sometimes.
Look at my phone and change the music.
Watch some YouTube.
My dad were driving and he showed me something on his phone. I got distracted. Next thing I look, I see a dog and I hit it with my car.
I thought that I'd be able to drive home the 3 or 4 hours straight. I thought if I had some energy drinks or sodas, it'd keep me awake enough. it didn't, and I fell asleep and ran off the road. And I hit a bump and flew 15 feet in the air. And that's when I woke up, and it was pretty scary.
Knowing the possible outcomes, don't these reasons seem ridiculous? So please, please pay attention now. Don't wait until tomorrow. Because as cliche as it sounds, tomorrow can be too late, as it has been for so many others.
She was the most amazing person that I've ever met.
She was never like that person to put people in a bad mood. She was always trying to put people in a good mood.
She was one of the best people I know. Her heart was so big. I've never met anybody with a heart as big as hers.
We had talked about going to the pumpkin festival, and I told her that I wanted to go. And she was like, yeah, I want to go too.
She runs down the steps, she's got her bag, and she's like, okay, I'm going to Vicky's house, love you, see you tomorrow. And I said, okay, not knowing that was going to be
the last time she ever spoke to me.
That night they were heading back from a pumpkin farm, and they were heading down the highway, and Joe, the passenger, was looking at his cell phone, and he felt the car jerk. It hit on the other side of the grassy median and flipped the car over.
I was very close to hitting the car myself, so I kind of closed my eyes. I think it slammed on my brakes, and that's whenever I got out of the car and saw Joseph jump right out, and I realized that he was searching for Sydney. So that's when I started helping him look for her, and I saw Sydney in the ditch.
I started calling hospital after hospital until finally they answered and told me that she was there.
We finally made it to the emergency room, and when the highway patrol people showed up, and he said she was ejected from the vehicle, she wasn't wearing her seatbelt. I thought, why? Why did she have it on? And then the ER doctor comes in, and he's like, she's very, very sick. She hit her head, and we're gonna try to take the swelling down, but where she was hit, it's very unlikely that we're gonna be able to do anything for her.
We miss her tremendously. For some reason, she made a bad decision that day. She clearly was touching her phone, and whether it was texting or looking at something on her phone, that caused the accident. And she also made a bad decision not to wear her seatbelt. That's caused her death. Joe was a front passenger in the car. He was wearing his seatbelt. He walked away from the collision. Vicky was a passenger in the rear seat. She had the lap belt on, but she had the shoulder belt behind her back.
I broke my arm, I broke my neck, and I broke my back.
For the longest time, I blamed that whole thing on myself. I could have stopped that if I was not on my phone texting my mom.
Learning from this for Sydney, because it affected us as healthcare workers, it affected us as people, it affected us as mothers and aunts and cousins and sisters. This is something that isn't just going to affect you. This is something that it's so preventable. These kids don't need to be so distracted. There's nothing that's important enough that's going to cause you to lose your life.
That was just one of hundreds of thousands of true stories about people whose lives have been irreversibly affected by distracted driving. Hard to hear, right? So just imagine if you or your family became one of these stories. The choice is yours. You can live in a dream world that it can't happen to you, that it won't happen to you. But trust me, it can. I should know, because it happened to me.
My life was shattered by a reckless driver who crashed into the train I was riding in.
He took the lives of my mom, niece, and 2 best friends while I was pulled from the burning wreckage. I live every day thinking about what could have happened if that driver had chosen to drive differently. So please, wake up. You have the power to stop this.
And truly, it's as simple as making the right decisions when you're driving, or even riding as a passenger in the car.
Remember, the driving world is a real world out there. We don't usually get a second chance to make a right decision behind the wheel. So don't make a crucial mistake in that split-second moment when you think that it's no big deal and that it won't happen to you. The good news is that it doesn't matter what you did yesterday, but it does matter what each of us chooses to do when we walk out the door today.
So, let's review some of the key things we can do to stop the #1 killer of teens in America.
Number 1, buckle up properly. Number 2, speak up when you feel unsafe as the driver or the passenger. Number 3, follow traffic laws. Number 4, put all distractions away before you start driving. And number 5, most importantly, make good decisions in the car, every ride. It's about all of us living in the real world and not a dream world.
So let me tell you guys about Sydney and her friends and who they were the day of this crash. Sydney and her friends were juniors. Sydney and Vicky were best friends. I think it's important that you all know that. I pointed out because they were best friends. They were both part of their school's technical center, and Vicky was studying to be a nurse. She was headed in sort of the health careers portion of her school. And Sydney had found her passion in fashion and beauty, and she really had the dream of opening her own salon one day. And they were busy girls. They did everything together. They were very involved at school. Their school started really early. So Sid and Vicky drove to school every day. They did most of the things that they did together. And they had a great routine in place, actually. Sydney was always the driver because she had regular access to a car. So she would get in the car, she would buckle up, Vicky would buckle up, and Sydney would hand her phone to Vicky. And that was something they did every single day, back and forth to school, and even on the weekends when they were doing things together just for fun. So the day of this crash, as you heard in the video, happened in October. She and Vicky were going to go to the Pumpkin Festival, and they decided that they invited Joe to come with them. And I point that part out only because the routine that Sydney had as a driver was when it was she and Vicky in the car. She had not been allowed to drive other people. Legally, she was allowed, but her parents understood that more passengers meant more distractions, and they weren't quite ready to let Sydney have more people in the car. But that day, she did what teenagers do sometimes, and she sort of snuck and invited Joe to come with them. So on the way there, everything was fine. They went to the, picked Joe up, went to the Pumpkin Festival. They had a really fun time. But as the day wore on, they started to get kind of tired and worn out, and they were ready to head home. Vicky was so tired that she decided to get into the back seat because she wanted to shut her eyes. So Joe took the ride of a shotgun on the way home. Vicky got in the back seat, and she did put her seatbelt on, but she put the shoulder strap behind her so that she could lay down in the back seat. Joe was sitting in the front seat. He was buckled, and for some reason, and we'll never know why, except for that she was distracted, Sid didn't put her seatbelt on. This was very abnormal for her. Her parents couldn't believe it when they heard that she didn't wear her seatbelt. She was sort of adamant about it. She was that person that spoke up when other people weren't buckled, and she was always kind of giving her parents a hard time about waiting for her little brother and sister to get buckled before they pulled out of the driveway whenever they were going anywhere as a family. So Sid wasn't buckled, and they were driving home, and what I want you to know about this drive is it was daylight and there was not really a whole lot of traffic. She wasn't speeding. There wasn't even any music on. Joe was texting his mom letting her know that he was on the way home. And unfortunately, Sydney made the choice to glance down at her phone. And when she looked up and saw that her car was going, over the lane, she landed in a ditch. And the doors opened and she was ejected. The accident reconstructionist confirmed that she 100% would have survived if she'd had her seatbelt on, would have kept her in the car. Poor Joe got out and ran around and, tried to find where she was. And I think you saw in the video, the woman with the dark brown hair was a nurse, and together they looked for Sid, and, things weren't good. They couldn't fix it. She had such a severe head injury and body injury that she didn't make it. It took a couple days for them to come to that conclusion. But the cause of that crash was distraction. The cause of Sid's death was that she didn't have her seatbelt on. So I want you guys to think about that and sort of understand that these little things that sometimes might even feel like a non-decision are factors in these crashes that become deadly. Okay? What can you do? As teenagers, as teen drivers, as passengers, what can you do to make sure that nothing like this ever happens to you or your family or your community? The first thing is commit to a game plan. And by commit to a game plan, I mean, think about the things that are most likely to sort of come into play to be distracting when you start driving. The first is seatbelt. What are you going to do to make sure that putting that seatbelt on is something that you always do before maybe you even turn the key in the car? What are you going to do to make sure that everybody else in your car is buckled? Are you in a position right now, maybe after some of the activities that you've done this week, that you get it now about seatbelts, that you have to wear it in every seat every time? Not only is it the law, but it is your first line of defense in case something unfortunate happens when you're driving. And it isn't always you're the young driver who's going to make the mistake. It could be a young driver needing to respond to someone else making a mistake on the road. So what are you going to do about your seatbelt? What are your plans for your phone? If you're someone who's very attached to it during the day, it's unlikely that you're not going to, sort of be curious about it when you're driving. So what are you going to do? Are you going to turn it off? Are you going to put it in the glove compartment? Is the back seat a better idea for you? Those are decisions that you need to make based on where you are right now as a person who's connected to technology. Eating and drinking. If you have a regular routine of going places and you go to the drive-thru, great, keep doing that. But change the plan a little bit to where you pull over to eat so that you're not distracting yourself if you're the driver, and if you're a passenger who's eating, that you're not, sort of tempted to pass a fry. This one, some people can struggle with speaking up. It's so important to know that when you're in a car, whether you're a driver or a passenger, you have to speak up if you see something unsafe happening. It's so important that you realize that as the passenger of a teen driver, that you have to pay attention to what the driver's doing. You can't really get in the back seat and just sort of veg out the window like you might if you were driving with a parent. It's a different ride, and as a passenger, you need to make sure that everything you're doing is in support of a calm and focused drive, and also being ready to speak up if something is not right. You just have to. It can be tricky for some people, but now's the time to kind of think about how you're going to do that. Like I said, put all your phones and distractions away and commit to making these decisions and following your game plan for each and every ride. Another thing that you can do, which we talked about at the beginning, is participate in our Just Drive contest. It's a contest that we're going to be running annually now. It's going on right now, and your school is participating for the second time. And the reason that we have these contests are twofold. Number one, we love to give money to students and schools because we love you guys. That's why we do what we do. But the other thing is that we know that the very best way for you all to make driving more focused than it is right now is to talk to each other. It's one thing for us to come in and talk to you, but for young people to kind of get on the same page together about what makes sense and what doesn't make sense is the very best way to get these injuries and these deaths down and the crashes down. So that's why we ask you all to come up with strategies and solutions and share them with us. So there's two categories of the contest. The one is the school social media campaign that is handled by a school advisor and a group of students. And the other one is a student award contest, and that's for a 30-second or less PSA that an individual student or a couple of kids can put together. The date to submit those videos is April 28th, so you still have a little bit of time. If you get inspired by what you're doing this week, we'd love to see more of your contest entries. And keep in mind that the $30,000, that is just for Ohio, so there's kind of a lot of prize money, which is exciting. Here's a video of somebody who won.
It only takes a moment. One moment for you to miss everything. Every moment that you're not driving safely is another moment of memories missed. Don't keep your phone out or on while driving. Turn off your ringer, allow no distractions, and put the phone away. Make the moments last. Just drive.
Cute baby. Thank you so much for having me here today. I hope you guys have a great day. Hope you have a great spring, a great summer, all of that, and we look forward to seeing your entries. Thank you again for having us on behalf of myself and the whole Impact Teen Drivers team. We love you guys. We want you to be safe and take good care of yourselves and each other. Thanks.